In the third episode of Star Trek Discovery, when we finally get to the USS Discovery, we meet Commander Ellen Landry, the Chief of Security. And she sucks. I don't mean she's poorly written or badly realized, but her personality and demeanor are cruel and awful. Then, in the very next episode, she dies. But she doesn't just die. She dies in the most pointless and stupid way possible. Landry gets a lot of screen time in these 2 episodes. This seems like a very important character to just kill off and never mention again. I never quite understood what that was all about, and I just chalked it up to the general weirdness around the beginning of Discovery. But after nearly a decade, I was shocked to see this character get real backstory and depth from a very unexpected source. The video game Star Trek Online. Not sponsored. But first, let's look at what Landry actually does in the show. In the 3rd episode, Discovery saves a prison transport. A prison transport with Michael Burnham on board, main character and former Starfleet officer convicted of mutiny. Commander Landry is the first crew member the prisoners meet, and she isn't nice. She calls them trash.
See, we're unloading all kinds of garbage today.
Then she calls them animals.
Starfleet says we have to feed the animals. Who's hungry?
Then she says something mildly racist about Vulcans.
Vulcan martial arts, huh?
Sus mana.
Vulcan should stick to logic.
She exudes the kind of absolute confidence of a Jet Reno, but doesn't have the charisma to be charming when she insults you. She's not the first officer, but she is essentially the right hand of Captain Lorca. Both Lorca and Landry are much more militaristic than what we've seen in Starfleet before. We are months into a war between the Federation and the Klingons, but they are way too into killing Klingons. They want to do it too much. When they find this adorable giant tardigrade on a wrecked ship, Lorca brings it on board after he sees how it tore apart some Klingons. And he orders Burnham and Landry to study it to reverse engineer some weapons. When this takes longer than 10 minutes, Landry decides that the problem is they aren't torturing it enough. So she pumps in some sedation gas and takes down the force field to shoot some lasers at the sweet, adorable water bear. Surprise! Sedation doesn't work and it tries to escape. She keeps shooting phasers at it and it attacks and kills her. Oops. Turns out the worst idea in the world was the worst idea in the world. Lorca says,
"Find a use for that creature. Don't let her death be in vain."
But of course her death was in vain. She accomplished nothing and died, which was the only possible outcome for letting this creature out and shooting at it. Usually that kind of poorly thought out evil plan is reserved for corrupt admirals in a misguided attempt at peace. She just did something shitty and died for no reason. Then the show just moves on. I don't know what to do with that. So when you start Star Trek Online, you choose where you want to start. Everybody ends up in post-Nemesis Starfleet, but there are several intros to choose from. There's Klingon, Romulan, and Dominion options, original series, and there's an option to start in the Discovery era, the Season 1 Discovery era. None of those options let me start with an NX-class ship and Enterprise uniforms, so I picked Discovery because it was the closest option. I start out as a cadet after the start of the Klingon War. After the pilot, but before all that stuff happened on Discovery. I'm at the academy, I'm hanging out with Tilly.
Are you excited? I am very excited.
Best day ever. When, because of silly video game reasons, I end up being captain of a ship in under 2 hours. Then they send me to Pryor's world, where I find the USS Buran, her captain Gabriel Lorca, and Commander Landry. And they're pretty cool. They're exactly what you'd expect from Starfleet.
There's no time! Captain, you need to go!
That's not how we operate, Commander. We don't leave people behind.
Landry is the first officer on this ship, and this character is Chief of Security Amna Patel, and they are getting married. She's happy. She's smiling without any dead Klingons around. This is weird. The Buran is disabled.
Alas, my ship, whom I love like a woman, is disabled.
So it's up to my ship, the USS Important, to transfer some prisoners of war. I even get to take Landry and Patel with me. We get to the space prison, and the space warden is just the worst. Justifying inhumane conditions, claiming it's the only way to keep the Federation safe. You know, one of those guys. Meanwhile, the vocal opposition to him is Ellen Landry.
As in, according to Starfleet regulations, Hadrian, not your own personal code of conduct.
Speaking very idealistically about Starfleet and what it stands for.
Let him fall. He's just a Klingon.
We are Starfleet! Since you've obviously forgotten, that is not how we operate.
How do I square this with all that victory at all costs, moral gray area stuff from the TV show? You can see a few moments where she starts to question these ideals.
You know, if I'd listened to the warden instead of saving a car, this wouldn't be happening.
You did the best you could back there, Commander. A car's responsible for his actions, not you.
But the person that brings her back is Patel, her fiancé. We head back to the Baran. There are a lot of Klingon ships, and the Baran explodes. The only survivors are the people on my ship, Captain Lorca, and this smarmy Andorian, my man Ensign Thepev. We end up on a shuttle that crashes on the surface of an ice planet. You know how it goes. Hold on, ice planet? It's Thepev time, baby. He's the ice planet guy.
You really haven't lived until you go camping on Andoria. Makes this place look like Waikiki Beach.
The ice planet doesn't go great. Professor Science gets killed. Then, oh no, not Thepev. Oh man, I liked him. Captain Lorca doesn't seem quite as noble as he was on the Baran.
I'll dig in here and cover your retreat.
It's a sound tactic. Think like a Klingon. Consider every weapon at your disposal.
This is more of the Lorca I know from Discovery. Okay, there's a thing about Captain Lorca that I won't spoil here, but the events of this mission are part of it. But the final straw is when Lieutenant Commander Patel sacrifices herself to save the rest of the team. And that's how we see Ellen Landry lose everything in one day, and how she goes from an exemplary officer to the hateful warmonger we see on Discovery. It seems like a lot to happen to somebody all at once, but in the context of war, something that's actually pretty likely to happen. This is a pretty hot take, but I personally think war is bad. I admit, I was very surprised to suddenly get some essential character backstory in a video game that is, as I understand it, Star Trek fan fiction. So I guess the next question I have to ask is this canon? And aren't you tired? Aren't you exhausted just hearing that question? Yes, it's canon. Let's move on. So losing everything is not enough to make somebody a monster. There's more to it than that. After that sudden and brutal tragedy, Commander Landry remained with Lorca on Discovery. And in the show, it becomes clear that Lorca is willing to manipulate people to achieve his own ends.
Lorca isn't interested in what you are. He's interested in what you can do for him.
The part I didn't mention about that scene where she dies trying to do something terrible is that moments before, Captain Lorca makes the whole crew listen to a colony of people getting killed in real time. Look, I actually really like the first season of Discovery, but this part is a little much.
Mommy! Mommy! Wake up! Wake up!
210 souls, all gone. I don't know if anyone is listening to this, but if you are, goodbye.
It's insanely over the top, but that's what pushes her to dedicate herself to something so obviously stupid to help with the war effort. With an order from the captain to get weapons from the creature and a horrific reminder of her past trauma, she decides it needs to be done faster and throws herself in harm's way to do it, without any consideration of the consequences. And that's the behavior of someone who has lost everything and places no value on her own life. Should they have taken a moment to address this backstory on the TV show? Probably, yeah. Even if Landry is only in a couple episodes, there's an intriguing, tragic character here that just comes off as a monster. But stumbling upon it in a video game? What a cool way to organically learn a lesson about judging people when you don't know what they've been through. Even if I only did it by seeing the story out of order. Okay, so I was curious when these missions were released in Star Trek Online. Was it before the show premiered? Early in the first season? Discovery started in September 2017, and these missions were released in May 2019. This was after the end of Season 2 of Discovery, so nobody had this context until years later. The show was really eager to move past its first season, so I can't imagine they would have intentionally made a throwback story focused on a pair of Season 1 characters. Everything about it appears to have been written and designed during the first season of Discovery. So why did it take so long to release it? I guess it must have taken a really long time to perfectly recreate every last detail of Jason Isaacs' face. This game has an art style, and he is just not in that style. That's a photograph of Jason Isaacs.